Hey everybody, welcome to reading class for today. One of our last reading classes before the end of the year here. We got tomorrow, and then on Friday basically we'll just be talking about the end of the book and taking our final test. So with that having been said, be faithful today again with the practice of your vocab words. Any words you miss, really drill those so that when Friday comes you're good to go. I'm still noticing some practice tests getting sent to me where people are only getting maybe 25, 30, 40, 50% right. And I would want you to do a lot better than that on the final real test, okay? So if you don't do so well, keep practicing today. We only got a couple days left, and then that test is our final reading grade. It would really be nice for everybody to end the year with a strong grade, okay? That having been said, let's jump to our vocab words on 148. We're about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines up from the top. Maniac Magee kept moving after beating Mars Bar down the road, right? And he wished he could duck into the Beals house and be sanctuaried there and not fear reprisals on them. So sanctuary is a tricky word. It's not a word that's in every dictionary. I found that out. But the word sanctuary means a safe place. Sometimes we refer to our church as a sanctuary because it makes us feel safe to know that it's God's house, right? And so if he wanted to be sanctuaried there, sanctuary just means put in a safe place or to be in a safe place. Okay? And so he wanted to be in a safe place away from the crowd, and some people were mad at him, others thought he wanted to race him, and he just was overwhelmed. But he was worried that he wanted to be sanctuaried in the Beals house, but not have a fear of reprisals on them. Reprisals is another word for like retaliation or taking revenge. I'll say acts of revenge. And so he knew if he went into the Beals house that maybe they would take it out on them then for, taking care of him, especially sheltering him from the people that really don't like him, right? Maybe Mars Bar and those people. He was worried about reprisals, retaliations, or acts of revenge that would happen to the Beals. All right, 154 then. So if you flip a few pages ahead, you'll find extort. The middle paragraph says he could always extort a day or two in class from them with free weekly pizza. So he was trying to keep the two twins, right? The two boys, McNabb's brothers. I don't know, were they twins? I can't remember now. No, the two brothers, at least, in school, right? And he could always extort a day or two from them by giving them a free pizza. Extort means to obtain by threat. By threats, or he could extort means to convince or bribe. So if you're trying to get someone to do something, you might threaten them or bribe them. Oh, if you go, I'll get you a pizza, okay? Or hey, if you go, we'll go to Dairy Queen tonight, right? That's called an extortion. You're using threats or trying to convince someone using bribes to do something. And so he would bribe them to try to go to school with pizza, right? All right, chapter 39, describe the personification found at the beginning of 39. So remember, personification means treating something that's not a human as if it was a human, like the wind whispered in his ear. This one said, March doubled back and grabbed April by the scruff of the neck and flung it another week or two down the road. And so, sometimes, in March when it should be getting warmer, it still snows and it doesn't get warmer and things like that. And that's kind of what they're talking about here. It says March pounded with its cold and nasty paws. So obviously it was supposed to get warmer, but it didn't. And so there's a little personification. It's treating March almost like a person or a being, right? What was Giant John building? This is probably one of the more shocking parts of the entire book. Giant John, that's John McNabb's dad. That's what makes it especially shocking. This is an adult. It's not John McNabb himself. Giant John was building a pillbox. Here's how it's spelled. That has nothing to do with medicine. I saw that on maybe one or two answers, and I know why that would be confusing. But a pillbox is like a stone house or a cement house with little holes cut in it that someone can shoot a gun out of. Like they use them in wars. So why is he building this war fort is really what it is. Why is he doing that? Because he's convinced Giant John is so racist. We talked about racism passing from parents to their kids, right? Well, here's an example of that. Giant John, the dad, is convinced that the black people on the other side of town someday are going to come and attack the white people. And then what are some of the racist opinions that he shared? So he's building this pillbox to protect himself because he thinks that's going to happen. He's that racist. Really sad, right? And so what were some of the opinions he had? He called them savages, bloodthirsty. He called them the modern day Indians. You know how Indians used to raid and attack white settlers? Now, there was a good reason for that in history. The white settlers living in America would sometimes take their land. So the Indians would attack them sometimes. And Giant John is comparing black people to the Indians. They're going to attack us just like the Indians, right? Very racist thoughts and ideas that he has about black people. Very sad, because he's an adult. He should know better than that. And think about what he's teaching his kids. You can see why Maniac stays and helps out those two boys, because he's worried what they're going to become, that they'll be rotten to the core if he doesn't do something to help them and their family, right? So number 4 then says, what did it mean that there was something in that house, the McNabb house, and it smelled worse than garbage and turds? So certainly the McNabb house stunk. There were rat poop all over the house. There was dog leak on that floor, right? The dog just used the bathroom on the floor. There was garbage all over and it smelled. But Maniac said there was something that smelled worse in that house than even the garbage and turds. Do you know what that was? He was talking about the racism and the horrible attitudes towards black people in that house. To Maniac Magee, that stunk worse than garbage and worse than turds. So he was speaking symbolically there. There wasn't really something that you had to plug your nose besides the garbage and the turds. But what was, we say when something's really bad, we say that stinks, right? Oh, he lost the game. That stinks. Now, it doesn't literally stink like in your nose, but it's bad, right? And so to Maniac, it was horrible that in this McNabb house, even the adults, even the dad, had these horrible, racist, stinky ideas about people of a different skin color. Really sad if you think about it, right? What did Maniac like about the Pickwells? So on the other hand, there's this Pickwell family, right? And they were really accepting of anyone. He didn't think anybody of any skin color would ever be frowned upon sitting at their table. Anyone could come, and it didn't matter. They wouldn't care, right? And so Maniac admired families like the Pickwells, who, unlike the McNabbs, were very accepting of people no matter what their skin color. It's something he admired, right? So why did he keep working with the McNabb kids, even though they were so difficult and to deal with, just disobeyed and were naughty, right? Because he knew, I love the way the book puts it, 155, second to last paragraph, the last couple sentences, but they were spoiling rotten from the outside in, like a pair of peaches in the sun. What a powerful simile, right? Using like or as a comparison. Soon, unless somebody did something, the rot would reach the pit. So he compares these two boys to a peach that you leave out in the sun. And if you leave out any fruit in the sun, it's going to rot. And Maniac Magee knows if he doesn't do anything, these two boys, their dad is a racist, their older brother's kind of a bully, right? And if he leaves these two boys be and he doesn't help them out, they're going to become rotten to the core too. They're going to become rotten, awful people too. So he decides he can't leave them. He needs, for his own sake, because he would feel guilty, he needs to help them out, right? And so what did the McNabb boys do one day that finally angered Maniac and made him explode? Top of 156, they found his glove that Grayson had given him for Christmas, and they were kicking it around and punting it like a football. This really fragile glove that already was falling apart, that was so special to Maniac, and he just exploded on him. That was enough. And he's like, when I say jump, you're going to jump. When I say, you're going to actually say how high, right? And he went off on them, and the McNabb boys realized that he was really serious, that they needed to listen to him and shape up. So what was Maniac's response then to getting invited to their birthday party? So he said he'd go, but on one condition. He said, I'll go if you let me invite anyone I want. And so what do you think Maniac is about to do? So if you read ahead, and I know many of you have, and I don't blame you, it's a good book. But if you haven't read ahead, what do you think? Who do you think he's going to invite? Now, think about this. He's just seen how racist the McNabb family is, especially the dad. And he knows that that's probably rubbed off. In fact, he's seen effects of that rubbing off on the kids, right? And so who do you think he's going to invite? Maniac does know a lot of black people, doesn't he? And these are these white boys, right? Maybe he's going to show them that black people really aren't that bad. We'll see. And maybe he'll invite one of his black friends. We'll see who he ends up inviting over. Maybe he'll surprise you. I think you'll enjoy the next section of the book. So I want to talk about this a little bit, this important topic, because I'm sure racism is something you'll come across at some point in your life. In high school or college, you might hear people say racist things, or, oh, those Somalian people can never be trusted, or, I don't like those people moving into our neighborhood. You'll hear people say things like that. In the book Maniac Magee came across even an adult, John McNabb's dad, who was acting in a very racist way and saying awful racist things about black people and how they're going to attack and how he needs to defend himself. So what are some things that we can do to help end racism? Here's a big one. This word we've talked about before. Empathy means the ability to feel what other people are feeling. Have empathy for people who are minorities. Realize that it's hard to be a minority in a country where there are more people that don't look like you than look like you, right? For many black people, it's very difficult to live in a country where all the presidents except one have all been white people. Can you imagine that? Imagine if you went to another country and all of your presidents were black. And you'd probably, that'd be hard, right? Have empathy for what blacks went through in the past. Slavery, right? This idea that blacks for many years were not treated fairly. And then even after the years of slavery, things like segregation, where blacks weren't allowed to use certain restaurants or drinking fountains or bathrooms that white people were, or schools. And there was mistreatment. And to have empathy for that and realize that that was really hard. And some people are still alive today that went through that when they were a lot younger. And some people's grandparents went through those very things in like the 1950s and 1960s. And so to have empathy, to have a care and realize that it's hard. It's hard to be in the minority. When you're outnumbered, that's difficult, right? So that I think that's one thing we can do to help end racism, is to have empathy, that it is hard to be a minority living in a country where you're outnumbered. It'd be like if you moved to China today, right? And you don't speak the same language as everybody else, you look different from everybody else, and it's going to be hard for your opinions to get heard because you're outnumbered by everybody else, right? And that's the reality for many minorities living in our country today, is they're outnumbered and their opinions aren't heard as loudly, and their leaders don't look like them, and sometimes they're forgotten about, or they live in inner cities where they're stuck in poverty. And it's good to have empathy for people like that. Here's another big one. See the similarities. It's so easy to focus on what you have that are different, like different colored skin, or we look different, or we have different customs or beliefs. But see the similarities you, just like the colored people, need friends and want friendship and want to belong and to be kind and want people to be kind to you. So do they. That we enjoy the same foods and we both need to eat and we both have some of the same needs, right? It's good for us to realize that they're human beings just like us. And when you see the similarities, that, yeah, it's okay, we have a different skin color, okay, but we do have many things in common, and most importantly, we need the same Savior, right? So see similarities between you and people of different skin colors. Yeah, there are differences, but you're both human beings that need many of the same things. Other things to think about. Don't say that you don't notice. Some people like to say, "Oh, I'm colorblind. I don't even notice that people have different color skin." And it's not, that's actually not a good way to combat racism, because to help combat racism, you have to realize that there are troubles for people who have different skin colors. For instance, I've told you about a study done before during this book that we looked at, that this person posed as a black person and filled out a job application as if they were a black person using a typical black person's name, and then also posed as a white person, pretended to be a white person, and then submitted all the same things, the same school on their job resume, the same work experience, and the person, the fake white person, got way more calls from businesses, wanting an interview than the black person did. And it really, in our nation, whether people realize it or not, there are some disadvantages to being a different skin color. And so to say that you don't notice any skin colors or don't recognize that means that you're not really looking that there are some things that we can work on in our country to help people improve and help people get equality, especially for minorities. And so it actually, many people can be offended if you say that you don't recognize differences. It's okay. It's good to say, yeah, there are differences, and some things maybe aren't the way they should be, and then to work to fix those. And so I'm going to put that right here too. Work to fix differences. Instead of saying you don't notice any differences, or I don't even notice when people have different skin color, notice that, yeah, there are differences. Yes, we have many similarities, but there are differences, and sometimes unfair differences. What can we do to fix that? And most importantly, remember this: God loves all people. And finally, we're all related, right? All people came from Adam and Eve. Those were the first two people. And people over the years, over the thousands of years that Earth's existed, right? Earth is only about 6,000 to 10,000 years old. Okay, but over all those thousands of years, that's still a lot of years, right? People have changed to look differently. People who lived in hot places near the equator, like in Africa, over time developed darker and darker color skins, right? Whereas people who live more in the northern or southern parts of the world away from the equator, developed whiter skin. But all of us finally can trace ourselves back to Adam and Eve, and even Noah after that, right? Because they were the only family left after the flood. And finally, we all can trace ourselves back to God. We're all creations of God. We're all souls that he loves. And Jesus died for people of all colors and races. And since that's the case, that can help us and motivate us to love all the people around us, even people who look different than us. And those are all important things to do to help end racism. And so we're going to see if Maniac Magee does any of those. I know it's not a religious book, so we probably won't see him say anything about that. But does he do any of these things? Does he see similarities between himself and people of different colors? We've seen that a little bit already. They all brush their teeth, and he told Grayson that, right? They have TVs in their home and bedrooms and beds, and he noticed that with the Beals already, right? They like a lot of the same foods. Does he show empathy and care for people of other skin colors? We've already seen that. What else does he do now to help the McNabb brothers realize that black people are just like them in many ways, and black people need love and care too? And what else does he do? Does he say everyone's just alike, or I don't ever notice skin color? I don't think he does, right? In fact, he even said a lot about the skin color of black people, and that black people aren't really black, they're more like brown, right? And so he doesn't say that there's no difference at all. And does he work to try to fix the differences? I think he definitely does. So we can learn a lot from Maniac Magee about how to end racism. Let's see how he tries to end the racism of the McNabb brothers as we carry on. Here we go. All right, here we go. Follow along with me. 158. Let's see if he is able to end the racism of these McNabb brothers before they come rotten to the core. The McNabb boys didn't know what they did expect Maniac to bring to the party, whom they did expect. But one thing for sure, they did not expect him to come walking through the front door with a black kid. So there you go. He brought a black kid. Look who he brings. And that was only half of it. From the way the kid swaggered in, from the candy bar that jutted like a chocolate stogie, like a cigar, from the corner of his mouth, from the ripstone evil scowl on his face, the kid had to be none other than Mars Bar Thompson himself. So he brings Mars Bar. There's a reason for that. Can you guess why he brought Mars Bar, of all people? If black meant bad, if black meant in-your-face nastiness, if black meant as far from white as you could get, then Mars Bar Thompson was the blackest of the black. Here, in the middle of their living room. So this house that absolutely hates blacks, Maniac goes and brings a black boy in there. And why Mars Bar? Can you make a guess? I think you're going to find out. In the middle of their neighborhood, stopping the party, the neighborhood kids, the Cobras, even George McNabb, stopping them dead as traffic, just walked in through the front door, the steel door, breezed right on in, past the bars. Standing there, I own this jointing there, before they knew what was happening, before anyone could reach for anything. So everyone just stops and freezes. They can't believe, who's this at their door, right? Which, of course, is just what Maniac had in mind. Remembering how little Grayson had known about black people and black homes. Thinking of the McNabb's wrong-headed notions. Thinking of Mars Bar's knee-jerk reaction to anyone wearing a white skin. And thinking, naturally, what else would you expect? Whites never go inside blacks' homes, much less inside their thoughts and feelings, and blacks are just as ignorant as whites. What white kid could hate blacks after spending 5 minutes in the Beals' house? And what black kid could hate whites after answering Mrs. Pickwell's dinner whistle? You see what he's trying to do? He realizes that a lot of the hate between the blacks and whites is because they don't realize they have so many things in common. And he knows if they would just spend a few minutes together getting to know each other, they'd see some of the similarities they have and how kind people can be, even of different skin colors than them, right? And he just knows that's going to help, or at least he thinks it's going to help. We'll see how well it does help. Just like we talked about. Notice Maniac's trying to stop racism by helping people to see the similarities that they have. And that a lot of the things that they believe are just stereotypes, like we've talked about, right? But the East Enders stayed in the East End, and the West Enders stayed in the West. And the less they knew about each other, the more they invented, right? Stereotypes. See, they didn't know much about each other, so they made up stories that they believed that were often bad things. Stereotypes. It hadn't been easy finding Mars Bar, taking all his lip about cheating on the race, taking some bumps and some shoves, Mars goading him to fight, but keeping his own cool, matching Mars Bar's glare for glare, telling him he wasn't as bad as he thought he was, really stoking him now, making him slam his candy bar to the ground. No? You want to tell me why I ain't so bad, fish? Go ahead before I waste you. Chest to chest. Keeping cool, letting Mars Bar do all the huffing. Simple. You don't cross Hector. You stay over here where it's safe. How bad would you be over there? So that's how he gets. So Mars Bar is really ticked, right? Because he beat him in that race, and so Maniac's like, well, here's how you can prove that you're bad. Go to the other side of town. You'd only be bad if you can go to the white side of town. So you see how he got him over there, right? Stepping back, then folding his arms, smugging it up just enough, standing there in his white skin, gazing nonchalantly about 6 blocks deep into the heart of the black side. Guess that makes me badder than you. So notice he says to Mars Bar, I must be badder than you because I go to both sides of town. So that's how he got Mars Bar to convince him to come over to the other side, right? Top of 160. They did not go straight to the McNabs. First they went to the Pickwills. Maniac wanted Mars Bar to see the best the West End had to offer. So notice he brings him to a very nice white family's house because he wants Mars Bar to see that white people can be nice too, right? The little Pickwills made as much fuss over Mars Bar as over Maniac. They believed, as did all little kids in the West End, that he carried 100 Mars Bars with him at all times. Not surprisingly, Mrs. Pickwill never batted an eye when she saw who was coming to dinner, so she didn't care. Even if it was this bully black boy, she was nice to him. And so notice the change that's going to have on Mars Bar. It was quite a sight, all right. 16 Pickwells plus Maniac plus a down-and-out golf caddy, 18 so-called white faces, and Mars Bar Thompson. To his credit, Mars Bar didn't use the word fish belly or honky once, though on one occasion he did bend the truth a mite. When a Pickwill kid asked him if it was true about the famous race in April, did Maniac really beat him going backward? Mars Bar studied his fork for a minute and then said, yeah, he went backward, but you got the story wrong. Wasn't me he beat. It was my brother Milky Way. The little kids couldn't understand why the grown-ups laughed for 5 minutes after that. As for Mars Bar himself, his expression never changed until the dinner was almost over, when the littlest non-baby Pickwill, Dolly, called him Mr. Bar. I love that. And even then, it wasn't so much as a smile as a crack in the glare. So notice when this little kid comes up to him and calls him Mr. Bar, he almost smiles, and Maniac notices that. So he's noticing just how nice a white family can be, huh? That they can be nice just like black people can be nice. Noticing the similarities, right? Maniac's breaking through his racism, isn't he? As for Mars, last paragraph on 160. Even if Mars wasn't letting on, Maniac could tell he was pleased to learn his fame had spread to the west. When they left, half the Pickwill kids followed them, begging Mars to perform his legendary feat of stopping traffic. 161. Don't, Maniac warned. It might not work over here. But the Pickwills persisted, and when they reached Marshall Street, Mars Bar commanded, stay here, and he stepped into the traffic. Not only did he shamble, jive, shuck, and hippadoodle at his own sweet pace, he did something he had never done in the East End. He came to a complete and utter halt halfway across and let nothing but the evil in his eyes take care of the rest. He stood like that for 1 full minute. By the time he finally moved on to the far side, so the legend goes, 23 cars, several bicycles, and a bus were stacked to a dead stop in both directions. Maniac hurried across while the Pickwells stood at the curb cheering and waving goodbye. But no one was cheering now in Fort McNab, and Maniac knew that despite the swagger and the skull and the chocolate stogie, Mars Bar Thompson was one uneasy dude. So you guys are going to find out now what happens at the party after he brings Mars Bar. But you see what Maniac's doing. He's trying to break through the stereotypes, right? Get white people and black people to actually meet each other so that they can see those wrong stereotypes, those ideas that they have about each other are wrong, and that they can get to know each other and see that they really actually have a lot in common. So enjoy that next section. I think you'll find it interesting. Almost forgot. We need a code word for today. So let's go with Mars Bar. Mars Bar is it because he's the guy that Maniac is using to help break through this racism. So that's our code word for today. Have a good day, guys.